Testing. Okay, good afternoon, colleagues, and welcome to our first meeting of the 2026 Strategic Planning and Budget Committee on October the 22nd. I'll call on Regional Clerk Tim Brubaker to perform the roll call. Tim.
Thank you. Regional Chair Redmond.
Present.
Councillor Craig.
Present.
Councillor Erb.
Present.
Councillor Foxton.
Present.
Councillor Gowing.
Present.
Chair Harris.
Present.
Councillor Hunick.
Go Jays, go.
Councillor James.
Present.
Councillor Liggett. Councillor McCabe. Councillor Nowak. Yes. Councillor Rodriguez.
Present.
Councillor Salonen. Councillor Shantz.
Present.
Councillor Verbanovich. And Councillor Wolf. Present. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gathered today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Chinantan peoples. We recognize the enduring presence of Indigenous peoples on this land, and we honor their historic and ongoing contributions to our community. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Well, colleagues, good afternoon and welcome to the first meeting of our 2026 Strategic Planning and Budget Committee. This meeting really sets the tone for our work together as council over the next few months. Yes, months. I'm looking ahead to December 16th, our final budget day, when we finalize a 2026 plan and budget that balances the vital services residents rely on with the need to keep our community affordable. I believe and know we can get there. Back in May, the committee gave staff clear direction to prepare a draft 2026 budget that limits the overall tax levy increase to no more than 5% while maintaining essential services and finding efficiencies wherever possible. Over the summer, staff have worked hard to meet that goal, and the draft we'll see today already reflects that direction with service and capital adjustments to built in that will achieve it. We all recognize that this won't be an easy budget year. Municipalities across Ontario and Canada are facing some financial pressures, such as inflation, infrastructure costs, and growing community needs. Because of this, we can't be all things to all people. There will need to be made tough choices. But focusing on the things that matter most to residents every day will guide our work. And I am confident that we'll find the right balance through collaboration, open dialogue, and shared commitment to fiscal responsibility. With that, I'll turn over to Wayne Steffler, Commissioner of Corporate Services and CFO, to kick things off. And before that, Wayne, thank you to you and your team for your diligent work over the summer. My apologies. I guess I'm going to thank Wayne first and Matthew for all of staff's work, including the CLT, to get us to this point. We look forward to a robust discussion. And over to you, Matthew.
Thank you, Chair Harris. On behalf of all regional staff that's been working on to prepare 2026 plan and budget, I'm really excited to kick off the process this afternoon. As Chair Harris mentioned, this is the first meeting in a series that will take us to the end of this year. So December 16th is our target. Today is the introductory session, where we will be releasing all the details of the preliminary budget in time for the budget review meetings that are starting on November 18th. So look forward to a week before that to get the details of the budget. Today is really about setting the stage, understanding the parameters under which we were operating, and including the very clear guidelines that I think all of staff were very grateful for, that helped us really frame the conversation towards this affordable plan and budget. So today is an opportunity for you to learn more about the work that we've undertaken, the principles that we've pushed through to meet that levy guideline of 5%, which we achieved. So the objectives for today are to introduce the strategic plan and budget process, have a bit of a reminder on the process side of things of when we will be disclosing information and when is when you can lean in with questions and lean into the outcomes. Provide some important community and economic context that is impacting our work and that of the partners that are also supporting us in delivering services to the community, and provide a high-level overview of the budget that you'll be receiving the details for in the coming weeks. So first, so all the data that we'll be sharing today is draft. I know that there's still a few things that we're tweaking, that we're confirming, dotting the i's, crossing the t's to be able to finalize the detailed draft budget that will be shared with you. Today is really about sharing information, familiarize you with the process, and with the parameters under which we operate. So just as a reminder, no decisions will be made today, and detailed budget information will be released by November 12th. So we look forward to your questions, your collaboration and your support as we refine and finalize plans in upcoming meetings. On that basis, with the team that's here today and all the team that's been working in the background, we are confident that with your support and direction, we can build a robust plan and budget for the coming year. Today, you'll hear from my colleagues, Commissioners Wayne Steffler and Connie McDonald, and Directors Jenny Smith and Nicole Neal, who will drive you through both the budget side and the details of the budget and the details of the planning and the outcomes that we're planning for next year. So now I'll hand things over to Wayne for the next series of slides on the timelines and the general purpose and outcomes of the process.
Thank you, Matu. So today is the first of a series of committee meetings that are outlined on this slide. We have made room in the schedule for detailed reviews on the budget as well as opportunities for questions and community input. Based on feedback we received from you, we added separate days to do deep dives into the operating budget on the 18th and another review day for capital on the 19th. These agendas will include some education type information as well as an overview of plan and budget and any adjustments to services and the capital program. These days are opportunities for you to raise questions, and we have dedicated December 3rd to come back to you with information from the operating and capital review days. On November 19th, Grand River Conservation Authority will be here to present their plan. And on November 26th, Waterloo Regional Police Services will deliver their budget to you. Then on December 16th, we hope to finalize the budget with you. Next slide. So this slide reminds us of what the plan and budget process accomplishes. It translates Council's strategic goals into measurable service levels. It establishes resources, financial and otherwise, needed to deliver those services. It determines the property tax and user rates to fund them. It sets the approved capital program that supports our $11 billion of tangible capital assets. Essentially, this process connects community priorities with the resources needed to achieve them. To use a quick analogy, for going on a trip, we need to know where we want to go, but affordability can essentially determine the route and how fast we get there, kind of like whether you should fly or drive. I will now pass things over to Connie to talk about how we make decisions.
Thanks, Wayne. We're going to talk a bit about how we know where we want to go on that trip. The region of Waterloo delivers an incredible array of services to the community, from ensuring clean drinking water to running a very busy international airport. Our work is broad and challenging, and we need clear plans, funding, and resources to keep those services running smoothly, to maintain our infrastructure, and to still have some room in the tank for some growth projects, important ones like our ion transit system. Currently, the region of Waterloo has over 20 long-range plans guiding services, capital asset renewal, and infrastructure growth. Some examples of those include the region's asset management plan, our paramedic services plan, our airport growth plan, and the plan to end chronic homelessness. Each of these plans have their own goals, time horizons, and lists of actions. But as our community and community context changes, our plans have to change too. So to help with this, each term of council creates a corporate strategic plan to act as our roadmap for change. Our current plan, Growing with Care, has 4 priorities, which I'll speak to in a moment. This plan is created by council through community engagement, data analytics, and a deep understanding of our opportunities and challenges. It speaks to where we want to go, reflecting where we are now. Our annual business plan and budget process helps to calibrate action even further, looking at how much we will achieve in a year based on the resources that we have available. All in all, this framework allows us to maintain a future-focused and agile approach to community improvement and service delivery that ensures we're continually adjusting based on feedback and needs. Next slide. Quick reminder, our Growing with Care strategic plan with a core vision of a compassionate community where everyone can live a good life, and our mission to provide essential services that support quality of life for each and every person in Waterloo Region. The plan focuses on 4 key priorities: addressing the housing and homelessness crisis by investing in affordable homes and economic opportunities, growing sustainably while adapting to a changing climate by reducing GHG emissions, promoting active and public transit, and improving resilience to severe weather, making services and opportunities more equitable by providing accessible and innovative services across the region, and cultivating an organization that supports staff to provide exceptional service by leveraging new technologies, valuing innovation, and new ways of working. These priorities also include our path to meaningful reconciliation with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities. Back to you, Wayne.
Okay, so earlier this year, Council directed staff to prepare the 26 budget with an overall tax levy increase not exceeding 5% while maintaining essential services and identifying operational efficiencies. Council further directed that the 10-year capital program be developed within an affordability framework, aligned with base operating budget, supported by a sustainable debt level, and preserves the region's AAA credit rating, and grounded in realistic assumptions for development charge collections, grants, and other funding sources. Council also requested that any new FTEs be supported by detailed business cases to ensure transparency and affordability. Council direction has guided every budget decision to date. Next slide. In May, Council approved 6 principles to guide budget decisions. Together, these principles keep the plan focused, affordable, and accountable. These principles ensure Council is guiding staff through the budget process, and we are on the same page in evaluating options. The principles are: make measurable impacts on growing with care outcomes, mitigate major community or organizational risks, maintain core service commitments, meet legislative standards, advance time-critical priorities that can't wait, and ensure every proposal is financially sustainable. Next slide. This year's plan is about striking the right balance, ensuring quality service while maintaining affordability. We're maintaining essential services, tackling the big issues of our community cares about most, and finding smarter, more efficient ways to deliver services. The focus isn't on doing more, it's on doing what matters most. We put the community first in every decision we have made. Maintaining the reliability and quality of service that residents, businesses, and visitors rely on was of primary importance to staff while developing the plan. Meeting the 5% target meant adjustments to both what we do and how we do it. This does come with potential risks, but we work diligently to offset these by finding solutions through working differently to achieve the same or similar outcomes, adjusting service levels to better reflect shifting demand or uptake, and leveraging effective financing strategies. Managing and mitigating costs across both the capital and operating budget together also helped us achieve affordability. This integrated lens will improve Council's line of sight on the long-term affordability of service growth plans from an operational, asset growth, and renewal perspective to help Council manage the level of impact on residents and businesses for years to come. Next slide. So this diagram shows all the pieces of the plan coming together. It starts with line-by-line departmental reviews, where teams assess pressures, review service drivers, consider efficiencies and emerging needs. From there, staff applied Council's principles to develop options that balance affordability, service quality, and long-term sustainability. We took a full organizational look across services to assess the risks, community impacts, and financial impacts of those options. to ensure they're practical and responsible. The community also plays an important role, providing input through surveys, consultations, and public sessions. This allowed us to draft a plan and budget that met the 5% guide. Over the coming meetings, we'll walk you through the service adjustments already baked into the plan. After deliberation, it'll be up to this committee to review, adjust, and approve the plan. Now I'll turn it over to Jenny Smith to share the community context we integrated into our preparation of this plan and budget.
So Jenny, before you get rolling, I am going to just let colleagues know. I know, Chantal, you've got your, or Councillor Hunick, you've got your hand up. We are going to take questions after each staff member's presentation, or after the presentations. We'll open it up for questions. So if you'll indulge me, I'll just do that. So Jenny, go ahead.
Thanks so much. So one of the things that we've been doing this year is helping community better understand the services that the region provides and how tax dollars are spent. Community wants to learn more and tell us about the things important to their families, their businesses, and their quality of life. And the region does a lot of things which are outlined on this slide. It includes getting folks to where they need to go through transit, providing homes by working with partners, protecting our environment through safe drinking water and wastewater treatment, garbage collection and diversion programs. If you want to move on to the next slide, that would be great. Thanks. And supporting people to work through employment supports and affordable childcare. This slide really shows what the plan and budget process is all about. It's about providing essential services that people rely on. Next slide, please. So the community context is critical to how we set out the plan. Understanding the community also helps us be good partners to other organisations working to support Waterloo Region 2. As an introduction to our context, Waterloo Region has experienced remarkable growth, identified in the 2025 Waterloo Region Vital Signs Report as one of the fastest growing metropolitan areas in Canada over the past decade. And we continue to experience demographic shifts. Despite decreased international student enrollments, our region continues to grow, driven by young adults and newcomers. Young adults aged 20 to 34 as a demographic are growing at rates 4 to 5 times the national average. And as our community grows, services, infrastructure, and resources are needed to welcome and support residents. Like other communities, housing affordability is a pressing issue for residents. Average rent increased by just over 6% last year, outpacing the inflation rate of 2.4%. The unemployment rate in August was 7% overall, but much higher in youth aged 15 to 24. Responding to this growth and maintaining community affordability impacts our ability to keep pace as the growth surpasses available revenue tools. We also know that the Canadian economy also faces uncertainty. Depending on the full impact of tariffs and other trade disruptions, GDP growth is projected between 1.6% and 2.1% for 2025. This is on par with averages being seen across Canada. But we know our business community is forging a strong economic path for the region, and with our collective support, this is making a difference. Regarding healthcare and public services, we know that in 2023, nearly 65,000 residents in Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge lack access to a family doctor. Public health and paramedic services continue to provide a crucial service in bridging gaps in primary healthcare across the region. So on to the next slide, please. So how are we responding? To address affordability, we've been finding efficiencies and managing our costs. In recent years, the region of Waterloo was successfully achieved over 41 million in efficiency savings and made decisions that have avoided additional costs exceeding 100 million into the future. Reducing the pressure on the levy requires a systematic approach to manage rising costs and maximize resources for service priorities. Some examples of this include sharing resources and improved integration across divisions, such as in public health and neighbourhood nursing, an investment in digital service options, self-service options, enhancing resident experience and reducing costs, We're also making progress to address the region's growing childcare needs. Although we added over 18,000 licensed CWELP spaces, there are still over 13,000 children waiting on licensed spaces. To help close this gap, we're focusing on innovative approaches such as modular childcare, Indigenous-led centres, and pilot projects supporting those most in need. We've also been addressing climate change while finding efficiencies through green energy investments to focus on energy-efficient solutions and long-term savings. One example is utilising methane gas from landfills and wastewater for energy. In response to changes in post-secondary enrolment, several strategies have been introduced to diversify GRT ridership and revenue. Other strategies have included reducing 2025 service expansions and removing unnecessary extra trips. Operator schedules have also been redesigned for optimal vehicle efficiency, and the new GRT day pass and group pass options have been introduced. Significant investments in community collaborations have also been an effective way to meet community needs. The upstream funding model showed a 2.4 return on investment, creating over 150 jobs, supporting nearly 40,000 individuals, and bolstered the local economy by almost $10 million. And finally, public health and paramedic services have evolved service delivery based on community needs. One example is the expansion of the community paramedicine program. This program aims to support residents at home, reducing necessity for emergency services and hospitalizations. I'll hand it over to Connie, who will talk a little bit about community engagement.
Thanks, Jenny. So the data tells one part of the story, but getting out and hearing directly from residents is critical to understanding their experience. Next slide. Each year, we engage with thousands of community members to hear more about their lives, what's important to them, and what they think about regional services. Listening to community is a continuous process based on building relationships and taking action based on feedback. We listen through our surveys, like our Ipsos Satisfaction Survey, and through community collaborations like the Youth Impact Survey and Vital Signs, just to name a couple. This information collected throughout the year is reflected in the draft plan and budget reflected to Council. We also provide opportunities that are specific to the annual plan and budget process. Next slide.
So we've got three main goals to this year's engagement. The first, has already been mentioned, is to build trust and relationships. Second was to build awareness about the budget. Last year, we heard a lot from this committee about the importance of this goal, and now it's a year-round effort for us. If people don't understand what we do and how we fund services, they can't provide fulsome input on how we spend tax dollars. Finally, our goal was to meet people where they're at, offering plenty of opportunities for dialogue. Next slide, please. Whoops. And we've certainly been out and about throughout the community, listening to and engaging with residents from all across Waterloo region. We've had outreach displays at events such as the KW Multicultural Festival, Cambridge Tri-Pride, North Dumfries Community Services, and Cambridge and Kitchener Farmers Markets. People have really enjoyed the opportunity to connect with us. For those that prefer online engagement, we've had an interactive Engage Waterloo Region webpage. We've also connected with important advisory committees and community groups such as the Grand River Accessibility Advisory Committee, KW Accessibility, and the Youth Advisory Group. Next slide, please. And in addition to all of this engagement, there'll be two public input meetings here in Council Chambers on November the 18th and December the 3rd, and two new special budget consultation sessions in Cambridge and Woolwich next month, added at the request of this committee. These opportunities are for community to provide input on the draft plan and budget. And we'll be sure to summarise all of what we hear from community at a later meeting on December the 5th. And I'll hand it back over to Nicole.
Thanks, Jenny. If you could go to the next slide, please. We're going to get into the numbers now, the fun part of plan and budget. So I thought I'd start with just some property tax context. This budget process is so that we can set the regional tax levy. This levy is then collected through property taxes. Included in any property tax bill that you get from the region is funding for 4 different sources of services. And you can see that on the pie chart on the left. So 40% of property taxes collected comes to the services that we're discussing as part of this Region of Waterloo plan and budget. 30% then goes to area municipalities for their key critical services, and about 20% goes to the police. Both area municipality and police use similar process as what we're going through now to set their own levy annually. We don't have any influence at this table. Education then takes the remaining 10%, and the education rates are set provincially, and all municipalities are the same. The education rates have been frozen along with assessments since before COVID. The second chart on the right compares the average 2024 property tax for a 2-story home to other comparable municipalities, both upper tier and single tier. The Region of Waterloo continues to come in as the lowest of these comparators. And this is a combination of both the services that we're offering as well as the efficiency of service delivery that we have established here in the Region of Waterloo. More detailed benchmarking is going to come forward to the council as part of the Municipal Benchmarking Network Canada annual update in December. If you go to the next slide, please. Oh, I think you have to click again to get the second table on. There you go. Thank you. This slide outlines the different responsibilities that go into that final regional tax bill, that 40% piece of the pie that's ours. So this council is responsible for 2 things, determining the services that to be provided and the resources needed to provide that service. That's what we're doing in this process this fall. That gives us a total amount of tax that we need to collect from residents. So that's part 1. The second thing that we need to do is then in Q1, council will set the tax policy that distributes that total amount of tax that we need to collect over all the various property classes. So how much in total will residential properties pay versus multi-res versus aggregate? That's the part in Q1. That doesn't change the total amount that we need to collect. That's what we set this fall. It's just who is paying what % of that tax total. If you go to the next slide, thank you. So like Wayne mentioned earlier, council set guidance on operating budget that the tax levy increase year over year should be no more than 5%, and that's what staff has put forward here today. Residents will see their property tax increase 4.94% for regional services. This was not an easy process, even though 5% is above the current average inflation. And there's a couple main reasons that we had to compete with beyond just normal kind of inflation. Our change to the waste pickup contract continues to be phased in. We've been phasing this in over the past 3 years, and the new contract starts March 2026. The total increase for the contract was $31.8 million, and this year we increased the last $8.2 million. So that's just over 1% of the levy. People inflation, noted in the chart there, includes management and union salary staff increases. Staffing accounts for about 34% of our annual operating expenses, and we continue to follow a rich set of HR policies, in particular one that targets the 50th percentile on compensation. I would note that there is some catch-up through contracts to inflation experience over the last few years, since union contracts only expire every 3 to 4 years. Also included in this number, the people inflation, noted there 17, is the cost increase on existing benefits. There have been no new benefits added outside of union negotiations, which this council would have approved all separately. However, benefit costs are increasing on average just over 5%. So this is a pressure for every entity and has been for a few years. It's not a unique challenge to our organization, but between the two, just normal staffing increase, it's 17 million total of pressure, or about 3% of the overall levy that we had to find just to fund that. As you're aware, in 2025, we're seeing, some concerns or some deficits around our revenue in transit and airport and POA. These pressures are expected to continue into next year, and they added about $7 million of pressure to our 2026 budget. And the last category there, just before you get to the service efficiencies, is our debt related to 2025. So we issued new debt this year. We have to pay for the debt servicing costs starting next year. We also increased our reserve funding per the pay-as-you-go policy. So that's about another 8 million represented on the chart. Despite all these pressures, the budget was able to find and prioritize funding for reopening Dune Heritage, continuing to fund a better tent city and the food bank, and annualizing all the great choices that council made in the 2025 budget process, like the paramedic service expansion. We were able to do this all by doing a deep review and looking for efficiencies and savings. That's that green chart, green item on the chart that goes down. There's 3 categories of adjustments in that service adjustments: working differently to achieve the same or similar outcome, right-sizing our service to reflect demand or uptake, and the last category was adjusting financial strategies. On November 18th, when we come back together, we'll work through the complete list of adjustments. Today, after this presentation and open, we have a closed report with all items with a potential staffing impact to discuss. Go to the next slide, please. If you recall, our operating budget can be thought of in personal finance terms as our day-to-day spend, similar to how an individual would have rent, groceries, childcare, that sort of thing. This chart shows how we are covering all the expenses for the services we are planning to provide in 2026. Property tax is the largest source at 43%. Residents also directly contribute through user rates, fees, and other charges, which is 21% of our funding sources. So that's 64% of services that are paid by local residents, similar to how a household might view a paycheck. The remaining 33% is representative of our cost-shared programs, where we, the region, provide the service, but the funding model is shared with other levels of government. And if you go to the next slide, I have a breakdown of those cost-shared programs. There's many programs that are cost-shared. You can see them all listed across the bottom of the slide there. And I thought I'd just walk through some examples. So paramedics are cost-shared with the Government of Ontario, primarily on a 50-50 basis, with some initiatives being selected for full funding at 100%. Ontario Works is mostly funded by the Ontario government, and program staff have secured and anticipate new funding to keep going there. Seniors and Children's Services have a ministry claim process for eligible expenses and one-time grant initiatives. And Housing Services have shorter-term funding announcements typically, and we are waiting for our next one still. So what this slide is showing us is the portion of the work the region is taking on or funding continues to grow. In 2019, our budget for these services was $104 million. By 2025, so 6 years later, our contribution had doubled to $211 million. In 2026, the preliminary estimate is $227 million, which is a growth of 7% from last year. The main drivers of the growth over time continue to be, and these stories haven't changed since the prior discussion, housing and homelessness. This council correctly identified the community impact of housing and homelessness and prioritized this in our Growing with Care strategic plan. Provincial funding for this initiative or this community pressure has not followed at the level we hope, so we continue to invest ourselves. The other one I'll call out here is paramedics. Through this term of council, great work was done to right-size paramedic services and bring the response times into target range. That great work shows here, since paramedics are only 50% ministry funded. I would also use this chart to point out an example of one of the many staff-found efficiencies. Ontario Works funding from the levy has gone down since 2024, despite growing caseloads. The 2026 decrease is mainly the result of the Canadian Dental Care Plan, providing dental care to OW clients, which has reduced the regional contribution to dental benefits. So that's a win for us, the region, financially, and it provides a higher level of dental care to our clients. So if you go to the next slide, I'm going to switch now to talk about capital. So our operating budget, personal finance terms, that's our day-to-day bank account. Our capital plan is our bigger purchases outside of the day-to-day. So in personal finance terms, this would be home repairs, saving for a car, or maybe a travel holiday you've saved for. Our capital plan covers every service and division, and it looks at renewal, which is keeping assets in good repair, the 11 billion of assets we own, as well as what do we need to create to facilitate growth. Council will be asked to approve a 2026 planned spend of $614 million, as well as approve in principle a 10-year period over which we have identified projects valued at $7.4 billion. Note, this is a preliminary plan, like Matthew said. It may change slightly as we dot all the i's and cross all the t's. The three main divisions with heavy capital plans are transportations, that's roads and transit, both traditional and rapid transit. Engineering and environment, that's our regional facilities, our landfill, and our water wastewater services, as well as community services, which is mainly driven by our housing facilities that are region-owned, run, and construction. Other on the chart is all the other services with capital spend. So seniors, children's, everything else, they're all just very small slices. So for the sake of presentation, they're grouped up. You will see all the details when it comes out November 18th. So if I just wanted to take a step back and talk about the process of how projects get on this plan. If you think about capital delivery as a funnel, and yes, this is the same analogy I used earlier this month when I was talking about reserves. At the output of the funnel, at the end of the process, a capital project is delivered. So we put projects into the funnel from two different sources. The first on the left is the growth focused projects. These come from our council-generated strategy, Growing with Care, and each services area's long-range plan, which you might also know historically as master plans. The second, on the right side of the screen there, is renewal, or keeping our existing assets in good repair. These projects are informed by the asset condition, which we track and report through the asset management plan, and the council-approved levels of service. These service levels dictate the condition and the optimal timing for renewal work to maximize financial effectiveness. So we have all these projects identified now, all coming into the funnel. Which one goes first? So right now, each division is prioritizing their capital plans based on their own best information and tied to their own individualized funding. So for example, if transit has saved more reserve, they can do more capital projects than say children's services that has less capacity to save for capital work. Staff are working right now through a cross-regional prioritization framework through the Bias and Capital Planning project that we hope to use by next year to be able to compare projects cross-regionally. So to recap, projects go in the funnel, the prioritized projects line up to go through that bottom spout, then the size of the spout at the bottom is how fast we can go. And that size of the spout, that's our funding. So if you flip to the next slide, I'll talk about kind of how fast we can deliver or how much funding we can put towards our capital projects. So there's 4 sources of funding for our capital projects. The first I'm going to talk about is regional development charges, or RDCs. This is a funding source we collect from developers when they build net new things in the region. These can only be used for projects identified to support growth in our RDC background study. So in our RDC background study, we actually list the projects we're going to spend this money on. RDCs are legislated by the Ontario Development Charge Act. This has been an area of heavy scrutiny in the public and legislatively over the past few years. From our perspective at Region of Waterloo, there's 3 key things I wanted to note with you today. First, development has been slowing this year. Q3 collections, as one quarter as an example, are down 60% year over year. We're assuming at this point, this is the first quarter we've seen a real slowdown in collections, but we're assuming at this point it's related to the slowdown being seen across Ontario, where development, particularly around condos, is very uncertain. At this point, we have not adjusted our capital growth projects due to this 1 quarter of lowered collections. At this time, there's no risk noted around RDC funds in the 2026 capital plan. This continues to be a risk that finance will monitor, and if we need to change something, we'll bring it back through council. The second key point I wanted to bring up around development charges is our last background study was done in 2018, which is very out of date at this point, as you can imagine. There's many growth projects that have now been identified through updated long-range plans that we are not collecting for, and construction costs have increased quite a bit faster than normal inflation that was predicted in the last background study. Staff are in the process of completing a new background study to be released post-election. Because of this, collections now are a bit low compared to needs, resulting in the use of RDC debt throughout the capital plan. And I'll cover debt in more detail in a minute. The third thing to note on RDCs is that the legislation continues to change. In 2025, Bill 17 changes were introduced and reviewed with this council. The main impact identified for the region of Waterloo was delaying collection to occupancy for all residential developments. It is difficult to estimate how this will impact us with many unknowns, but we have estimated the impact by assuming that just people who paid early to avoid interest are the ones that will delay, and that we don't collect any interest on delays. If we take that assumption, our impact is $21.4 million. I'll move on to the second source of financing, reserves. Reserves are savings of our tax levy. We put this money aside to smooth the impact to our residents of our capital project delivery. As we discussed earlier in October at committee, our reserve balances in the region are low compared to our debt outstanding, our project plans, and our other comparator municipalities. In this capital plan, we have reserves or the planned contributions to account for the timing of projects with suggested reserve funding. Grants are the third source of funding for capital projects. These come mainly from other levels of government. We've been soliciting grants and advocating for our needs. However, we have very little control over this bucket of funding. I also wanted to draw attention on that point to the chart on the right. You will notice almost a full third of our capital plan is identified growth projects where we do not have the reserves nor the RDCs to move ahead with the project. However, we are counting on grants coming through to allow us to continue this work. A key example is the LRT Phase 2 to Cambridge. We are asking for full funding. So the full amount for that project is sitting in unsecured. When we have it in contract in place, it will move from unsecured into the correct funding source. The fourth funding source there is debentures or debt. And that's really misleading because debt is really only buying us time. We still have to pay for debt out of property taxes and RDCs. This year, staff has done a ton of work looking at how much debt is affordable for regional residents per the direction of council. Go to the next slide. What this picture is showing is the reprofiling of debt done in the 2026 capital plan. The green section at the top shows what was expected to be funded by debt in the 2025 capital plan approved last year. The dark blue section is the debt we are bringing forward in this 2026 preliminary plan. The key here is that we have switched our plan to reflect affordability. In 2025, for example, we included quite a few housing builds that were 100% debt funded, hoping that other levels of government would come in with significant funding. Since that hasn't happened, what is in this year's capital plan is projects with identified funding that we will move forward and complete, and projects with unsecured funding that are starting past 2026, which means we will not complete the project if we don't receive assistance because the projects will not be affordable locally. If you go to the next slide, this just shows a different view of the same progress on debt. The chart on the left shows the annual increase in property tax needed to pay the debt servicing costs of the 2025 approved plan. You can see in 2029, we get to a 4% tax increase just because of our borrowing. On the right, you can see the impact of staff's hard work. No year is now impacted by more than 2%. I want to commend staff as this was not an easy task, and I look forward to diving into the details of the capital plan on November 19th. If you go to the next slide, in order to do this hard work, we needed to know what was an affordable limit for the region of Waterloo. We have done this by setting a guide to the amount of debt that we can afford. And that analysis was backed by 6 measures shown on the slide to show that we are being fiscally responsible to our taxholder base when it comes to debt. This year, we set our debt goal with the intent to stay close to $100 million annually, but with flexibility so that over the 10-year horizon, the total planned debt is below $1.2 billion. While annual issuances have varied to reflect the timing of major projects, the overall 10-year target has been achieved. This provided staff with both a goal and flexibility to manage through this change in approach. At this level, 3 of our debt metrics on how we set our limits have come in green, meaning they're on target within the 10-year plan. 2 of our metrics come in yellow. That means we get really close to target by the end of 10 years. We're doing the right thing. And 1 metric remains red around regional development charges. This means that we don't make it all the way in line to our target by the end of the 10-year plan, but we are making progress. In development charges, it was thought to be acceptable at this level due to the recent legislation changes and the development background study currently in progress. So we expect when that new background study is issued, we will no longer be red. Finance staff will, as I mentioned, look at this annually and adjust the target accordingly. If you go to the next slide. So what does this all mean when it all comes together for residents? Like, what will they expect to see? For that 40% slice of the pie that's driven by the region, residents can expect a 4.94% increase, which would be just under $100 for the average household. Included on the slide shows the history back to 2020 on tax changes. Again, we'll look at the services, the capital projects, and all the details behind these on November 18th and 19th. And now I'll turn it back over to Wayne.
Thank you, Nicole. So after today, you'll see a series of meetings. To support Council's review process, staff will be hosting 3 small group workshops for councillors ahead of the November 18th meeting. These sessions are designed to help councillors get familiar with the draft budget materials, review proposed service adjustments, and understand key changes in the capital program before formal deliberations begin. Details and dates on time slots will be shared shortly. On the November 18th and 19th will be your chance to dig into the budget. I'll walk you through outlines for those 2 days shortly. There are also opportunities for you to raise questions, and we'll have dedicated the December 3rd meeting to coming back with you with information and answers to questions from those operating and capital review days. On November 26th, Police and GRCA will deliver their presentation to you, and on December 16th is final budget day. Next slide. So looking ahead to November 18th, Council will focus on the operating budget review. It will include a summary of the overall 2026 plan, a financial overview, and a discussion on meeting the 5% target, including strategies for working differently, right-sizing service levels, and managing financial pressures, and a review of user fees and charges. Then on the 19th, Council will move into the capital budget review. We will review the capital program covering affordability, governance, debt, development charges, and reserves. We'll then take a deeper look at the capital program itself, including project-level deep dives to understand priorities and trade-offs. And thank you very much for your attention, and we're happy to answer questions.
Okay, colleagues, we'll go to our question list. Councillor Hunick.
Through the chair, thank you very much for this very informative presentation. I'm wondering if you can go back to the slide that shows where we sit in terms of tax impact compared to other municipalities. You said we're the lowest one. It was the one with the bar graph and the pie chart. Perfect. So my question is, I know that the target of this year is no greater than, thank you for the flip to the slide, no greater than a 5% tax impact. I'm wondering if you can predict if we accomplish that 5% tax increase only, will we still be one of the lowest among our comparators? Will we be middle of the road? How much wiggle room might we have to be more middle or median of our comparators, please?
Through you, Chair. Thank you for the question, Councillor Hunick. At this point, I don't know with any certainty. So what we do have is we know that the 2025 information to replicate this chart will be available in December. That's when it comes out. And I'm trying to gather from my colleagues across the municipalities to say what are their initial preliminary increases looking like. There's just not a lot of sharing happening yet as information is still coming together in a lot of those municipalities. So that's something we can continue to monitor for sure. And if we get better information during this process, we can definitely bring it back.
So I think what I want to share with colleagues and staff is that I'm not sure that it's necessary for us to remain the lowest of our comparators. It is necessary for us to deliver needed services. And so that would be my approach. Thanks.
Councillor Foxon.
Thank you, and through the chair. Before I go on, I'd like to say that that comparative is not true number because it only takes in the regional portion, not the municipality portion. So for the city of Guelph, or the city of London, or the city of Hamilton, they have their municipalities around as well as their larger cities. So it's all one tax. Therefore, their rates would be a lot higher than ours. Ours only deals with the regional portion, which, as you saw on the chart, was only 40% of the actual taxes. So we have to remember that, if that's correct, ma'am.
Through you, Chair, and sorry, my understanding of this, Sue, is that it does include all the lower tier charges as well. This is the complete pie chart represented in the bar graph.
But the chart you given further on is only the regional portion, correct?
Later on is only the
Right,
regional.
and
Yes,
so-
this one is
but-
comparable.
But
both.
city of Guelph, they don't.
They would have more services because they are a single tier, which is why we put the
Right,
single tier
exactly.
comparators
So they have
at
more
the end.
services, so that's why they're higher as well. Okay, my question was, on page 13, when we talked about the health cases and the doctors, why were the townships not in that reporting?
Through you, Chair, I can take that one as well. My understanding is that the doctor tracking information is only available in the cities and not available data to us for the townships.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Through the chair, yes, that's actually 2023 data from the Ontario College of Family Physicians. We only had available the data for the cities, unfortunately not the townships, but we could certainly take a look and see if we could source some additional data for you.
And I'm fine with that, just a bracket saying that the township data is not available would be helpful, or if you can get it, even better.
Yeah, I'll take a look for
So
sure.
the public's clear on it. What is a 1% tax increase? Now, I know last year the 1% tax increase for the region was 6.2, and that was not including police services. And I've heard now it's only about 5, and yet later on you talk about the waste. And it's 8 million, which is just over 1% tax increase. So what is a 1% tax increase?
Through you, Chair. So our levy that we put out for 2025 was 579 million. So we would take 1% of that, but after assessment growth. So the thing that makes it a little bit more complicated is the amount of tax that we collect. Like the base grows every year. So we can add more than 1% to our expenses without it equating to more than 1% for a resident. So we can increase the levy by 5.8, so $5,859,727 to add 1% to a resident's tax bill.
Just still curious why you said that the waste one at 8 million was just under 1%.
I do believe, and sorry, through you, Chair, that is just rounding. So 8 million isn't 2%, it's not 2.5, so it just got rounded.
Councillor James.
Thank you, through you, Chair, and thank you to staff for your presentation, as we're back at it again. I just have a couple of questions. I'll just ask one and a follow-up, Chair, just to keep things moving. The first one is to confirm, I believe you said that 34% of our operating was towards staffing. I just want to know if can you confirm that, if I heard that correctly? And I guess if we know if that is in line with some of those comparables to other like the other regions.
Through you, Chair. The 34% you did hear correctly. That is our staffing costs and our benefit costs compared to our total spend over the full year. I'm not sure about the comparator to other municipalities. I can take that as a takeaway and see if we can dig something up in the FIRs that get submitted every year.
Okay, it does seem low to me. I don't know, but I mean, we have nothing to compare it to, so that's just wanted to confirm if you can. And the other follow-up question, just for confirmation, when I look at the average over from 2020 to 2026, so in 2021 we had a zero tax impact. That means that we had a 0% increase. Okay, so Okay, just recognizing that and having worked at municipalities that have done that before, typically when you do that 0% increase, you have to catch up for that later on as well. So that's it for now. I won't take up more time. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor James. Councillor McCabe.
Thank you very much for the information and the presentation. Appreciate the work that staff have done. I had asked at the committee meeting a couple of weeks ago, just if we could have a breakdown of how much money we get from the federal and how much we get from the provincial governments, because it's being presented as a lump sum, and I just think it would be really helpful to have that split out. So I will leave that with you then for, I guess, November 18th, unless you have those numbers off the top of your head right now. Nope. Okay. Okay. I'm just sorry, scrolling through some of the questions I had here. I'm also concerned about, there's a note there about the provincial bill 17, the impacts from that. And I'm wondering, because that's a change the province is making around when municipalities will be able to collect development charges. And they're saying that we won't be able to collect development charges until a building is occupied, which means that we have to put forward the capital to, but not be able to collect the money until, it could be a year, 2 years, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, right? So I'm just really concerned about what that might cost us. And I know from a question, I think it was that committee that said that we'll have more of a sense of that in 2026. So my question is, is there some kind of a buffer that we're going to add to the budget so that we don't, so that we can kind of cushion that? Or has that been built into this?
So through you, Chair, what we've done to reflect that risk is we've made sure that we are financially sustainable through 2026 with all of our identified RDC-based projects. So with what we have in reserves and what we've already collected this year, we don't think that there's a financing risk to the projects in next year's growth plan. So we feel supported or strongly that we will be able to get through 2026 with no financing risk. And that gives us more time to understand the impacts of Bill 17, this delay in collections. Like I had stated, there's very many unknowns, including the slowing of the development speed. So this just gives us more time to get some more data, understand how the impact's going to look to us, and then we'll bring that forward as we prioritize our growth plan projects for 2027.
Okay, so the inevitable impact when it does come likely won't be until 2027, which isn't great, of course, but okay.
I think through you, Chair, the impact we will start to see and feel and experience and discuss next year. And what you're going to see as a result of that is projects in the 28, 29 kind of growth window may get delayed or change or look a little different. But we don't have enough information for sure to make those hard decisions right now.
Okay, thanks very much for that clarification.
Councillor Rodriguez.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and thanks staff for an immense amount of work to get to this point, and some great information today. A couple questions on our growth rate. I know back in April we received a presentation that, to no one's surprise, that our growth rate is slowing this year compared to previous years, and just wondering if we could have a sense of what we're looking at for 2026, if not today, as part of a future meeting. I'm seeing some nods, so okay.
Yes, we'll certainly do that for you. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Okay. So I think one thing that stands out to me, and there's a great overview of how our business plans and our service plans feed into this, but when I see a bullet that says no service expansions, to me that's as we grow, that's service shrinking. No matter how slow we're if our growth rate is slowing, we're not catching up. I'd argue we're shrinking. Can staff maybe comment on perhaps a little bit more specifically how we're making progress on some of these plans? And I think about some of the more recent ones. We've approved the paramedic services plan, Building Better Futures, GRT business plan. Are we making progress on some of the actions there despite no service expansion? I'll leave it there.
Can maybe take that one through the chair. So at our next meeting, we'll provide you a presentation on our draft annual business plan for 2026. And that'll give you a good sense of how each of those plans are moving forward and how we've had to prioritize some things over others to maintain affordability. I would say that we continue to make really great progress on our strategic plan, but we also recognize that we can't do everything all at once, and that there are trade-offs. And I think part of this process is for you, Council, to make decisions on those trade-offs. And I think that as we present the full draft budget in the next meeting, you'll have a much clearer understanding of where those trade-offs are and what any risks might be to delivering on those more long-term plans.
That's great. I look forward to that conversation. And just a final question, and perhaps for the chair or the clerks, just on timing of things in the details that were shared with us in terms of next steps around questions, inquiries, and motions. Understood that those will not be dealt with in November, but is the expectation that if there are draft motions, that those are shared at the 18th, 19th meeting so that staff have a few weeks to react to it ahead of December? Can you just confirm the timing there?
So thank you, Councillor. Through the chair, so there is the deadline for formal motions to amend the final budget on final budget day. I can say, though, that staff would appreciate seeing anything in advance, and the staff are happy to help the wording of those and help councillors figure those out. And the more time that staff have to help out, the better. But that said, there is a deadline to allow council to hear all of the information that's coming before anyone decides if they'd like to add or remove anything from the proposed budget.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Wolf.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the report. And thank you for all the work that staff has done to get to 4.9%. And I think that's what concerns me. I think I'm concerned about where some of the cuts and efficiencies have come from. And I know that we're talking sort of in some generalities, but I think it's important for council to know and for the public to know some of the things we've already cut to get to 4.9%. And so people don't think, oh, you got to 4.9, let's get down to 1. And how much, what it puts at risk for services for the people in our community. So that's what I'm concerned is, will we see a more detailed list of where the cuts and things have come from?
Yeah, through the chair, yes. So on that part of that November 18th, you will see the detailed list of all the adjustments and the explanations and how we group them and how we prioritize them in that report.
Okay, and finally, and I think, unfortunately, I know the answer to this question, with the reserves being low or lower than we want, should we not consider using reserves to lower taxes this budget?
Through the chair, I think I would not recommend that. I think if we look at some of the recent reporting we did on reserve funds and our pay-as-you-go policy, we really need to keep contributing more to reserves. And even as we review our tax rate stabilization reserve, which is our main one for that, it's at a low balance. So this would not be my recommendation, not the time to access reserves.
Thank you.
Councillor Erb.
Thank you, Chair Harris. And like all my colleagues, thanks to staff for what you've done to date. I'd like to go back to slide 25. Yeah, 25 on the cost shared programs. And I want to be clear on the 227 million, which is, if I'm understood correctly, this is the amount of money that we've had to add to the budget since 2019 that have been cutbacks by the provincial government related to housing and homelessness. And I just want that clarified so that we're that I'm understanding this accurately.
Yeah, through the chair. So what this is representing is additional resources that this council has dedicated to these programs deliverables, so additional services that the government, the Ontario government is not providing as much service as we are in the region of Waterloo.
And in other provinces, the provincial government would be providing this $227 million.
Through the chair, I think that it varies province to province of what programs are funded and to what extent. So I can't give a definitive answer on that one, but the understanding that I have is our 2019 funding doubling within 6 years for programs that we're delivering with a partner. They are not increasing their share like we are. So I think that's the story that we're trying to tell and to advocate, is that we are, addressing real needs in our community. We are putting forward the right funding to give the service level that council wants to give our residents, but that it is costing us more than other communities may be spending on these programs.
Thank you. A second question, if I may. So no service expansion, which is in here, and I have no trouble with that right now, given the economic climate, what we're expecting of taxpayers, our reduction in ridership and transit, and just a variety of reasons. I think, there are some tough decisions that this council is going to have to make this budget. My question, though, is sort of hypothetically, no service expansion, does that equate to a 0% tax increase like we've seen in the past, and then all of a sudden we have this catch up in 2 or 3 years from now when the population increases, the economy changes, and we have to add more services?
Through you, Chair. So do you want to start, Wayne? I saw you pull your mic down.
Through the chair, well, I think you would look at when you have a scenario where there'd be a 0% increase, that would have to be service adjustments or some kind of adjustments because, COLA, there's natural inflation on contracts, that type of thing. Those all things continue to rise. So in this case, you can see there that the waterfall chart shows there's various committed costs, some of the, the annualization where it's stuff we approved the previous year. We only put in partial funding because it was started partially through the year. Well, we have to pay the additional part of that. We have the labor contracts, which are requirements according to our collective bargaining agreements. And then we have other contracts that have clauses within them that have increases within them. So, and then the final part for us was that our debt policy and our debt management policy and our reserve management policy, which requires us through that policy to put additional dollars into reserves so that we get to that pay-as-you-go funding. So those all things accumulate up, and and then to adjust back, you need to make adjustments somewhere.
So if I may, it is sort of like it's going to be a catch-up.
Well, in that case, we are, what we tried to do this year, and we will go through with council, is where we tried to make adjustments, trying to mitigate as much as possible service adjustments, but I think you will see some things are just unavoidable to try to reach the target we were asked to reach.
Okay. Let me ask it another way. We have no service expansion in 26 and 27. And all of a sudden, our transit ridership increases in 28. And we need to bring on more staff, more equipment. Is it going to cost us more to do that in 28 than it would have in 26 and 27 if we wouldn't have had a no service expansion?
Well, transit, I would say, is a scalable enterprise. So we adjust, as volume adjusts, we would adjust for that. And there is a component of that that is funded through user fees. I would probably want to do more of an analysis to say, is there a cost, what is the actual cost benefit there? But you would get some savings by not, reducing some things and then bringing them back on, but it's comparing that to that, holding that cost over several years until the capacity comes up, that we'd be carrying that cost.
Okay.
Chair Redmond.
Thank you, Chair Harris. I guess I would just underscore what we're dealing with right now, and that's the fact that we do plan, we do look to the future as a regional council, and those master plans are really important to have in place, but it's a budget time that we re-examine and sort of check them against delivery and demand. And I just wanted to pick up on Councillor Rodriguez's point, which is it is really important when we come forward with motions, whatever they are, that impact the budget, that not only do staff have time to analyze it, but it gives colleagues a chance to contemplate, because there is no doubt this is going to be a tough budget. There is no doubt we are going to have to make priorities, and that may come down to individual decision making. But the better runway we have to contemplate that, the more respectful we are being to colleagues. So I really do support the fact that as you go forward and you think about refinements or additions or different ways to come at this, that we give not only staff, but we give our colleagues enough time to contemplate what the impacts might be on that.
Councillor Craig.
I'm on the list. Okay.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of comments, and I appreciate the endless work that staff do to present a budget that is somewhat simplified so everyone can understand it. And that's quite true. But I think we need to be careful here in some respects, because when you have a chart that shows different municipalities across the board, where it shows us with the lowest taxes compared to all the rest, the hardcore critics out there will argue we're only the best of the worst. And you've got to be careful about things like that. And the other aspect of it is the person in the region of Waterloo or the person in Cambridge looking at the fact that they, when you compare them to other municipalities, really couldn't care less. They care about what they're paying. And I think that's the issue we always have to keep in mind. So going forward, there are a number of things we have to consider. I agree with Councillor Wolf that there are some issues out there that need more attention. I think the doctors issue is a big one. I think the issues that affect social services are huge in terms of food banks and the services we provide. And I think that's the kind of thing that we need to keep in mind as we move forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Councillor Hewitt.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that staff's approach to budgeting has moved from what we could do if funding from other levels of government comes through to what we can do on our own. I'm wondering if there's a reason why we wouldn't phrase that as what we can't do on our own, or have like a companion list of here's what we would do if the federal government would partner with us in such a way, or here's what we would do if the provincial government would partner with us in a way. I wonder if you have thoughts in that regard, or why it was worded in that way in the package.
Through the chair, that's something we could contemplate and bring back some thoughts on that, unless one of my colleagues says anything else.
I'm relying on the collective wisdom here. The other point that I wanted to make for the community's sake is that what I learned in year 1 and year 2 of my first council term is that growth does not pay for growth. Therefore, the tax increase not only amounts to inflation, it amounts to every other awesome individual who is living in our region today. Do we have a measurement, approximately or actual, of how many people have moved into our region from 2024 to 2025? I know previously it was the size of Stratford that we inherited. So what was it this year?
Through you, Chair, we'll bring it back. I think this goes back to the question that Councillor Rodriguez was asking to provide the latest. We know we've had some bumps in demographic growth in 2023, I think it was Stratford. Last year it fell because of the starting fluctuations in the international student population in particular. So we'll bring you the the best available forecast that we have at this time to make sure that you're comparing things that are comparable.
Okay, thank you. Chair Harris, I have one more question, if I may. So I understand that the OW amount that the region is required to pay went down, and I think that's a good thing for the region. I'm just wondering if you can speak to, in the information package, it said that senior services amounts have also dropped, which I found peculiar, knowing that our seniors population is steadily growing.
Yeah, so through you, Chair, I can talk to the decrease in senior services. There's absolutely no decrease to any of the funding going towards actually providing service. What we're actually decreasing is a debt payment charge. So there was, I think, about just under 800,000 rolled off from the seniors' debt load. So that's what you're seeing a decrease. It's not actually cost related to services being provided.
Oh, that's so much better. Thank you so much.
Councillor McCabe.
Thank you. Thanks again through you, Chair. When I was looking at the obligatory reserves that we have, that were noted, and it indicates that the current infrastructure gap is $83 million for existing assets, which is very high, obviously. And we know that every municipality is facing infrastructure gaps. So I'm curious if we have a sense, or through this process we'll have a sense of how much more the infrastructure gap's going to grow as we continue to build more infrastructure to match the housing demands that we know that housing and planning is being managed by local municipalities, but as new housing developments are approved, and sometimes they're much further out than they used to be. I'm really worried about how much that's going to add, to the infrastructure challenge that we have now. So in the analysis that you've done, could you give us a sense of kind of what level of risk that means and what that might cost us in the short, medium, and longer terms?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor McCabe. Annually now, the legislation has asked us to report back to council on the asset management plan, so we'll be able to do that next year. So you'll have those annual increases every single year with respect to that information. I can't give you now what that sense is. It really depends on the capital plan, this budget approval, the projects that we can do under the affordability context that finance gave you, the impact that we can have from an operations and maintenance perspective on our infrastructure. It all depends really on the budget process, what council's comfortable approving through the budget process, because all of that impacts what we can do with our infrastructure and then contributes to that, the $83 million. We do have a sense of the growth needs that we need to support our community. And I will speak with my team on seeing if we can highlight that a little bit better when we bring back in June the annual, the update to this asset management plan that we presented this June.
Okay, thank you. Because I think that's something that staff obviously need to be mindful of, but council needs to be really mindful of as well, right? We're not going to be able to, we already have an infrastructure funding gap. And then as, local municipalities add more housing, which requires roads and sewers and all that kind of stuff, we're going to continue to pile on to that. So when we're coming to the decision-making points of what do we have the money to build or not build, does it make sense to, maybe repair and keep in good condition the infrastructure we have, or do we build more, right? So I just think that this is just something that really that worries me, and that I think we're in a tough budgeting position now. But as we continue, as there's going to be ongoing requests to add more and more infrastructure, it's going to put even more cost pressure on our budget. And as Councillor Hunick just said, we know that growth doesn't pay for growth. So I just would ask us all to be really mindful of that. And that would be helpful information to bring back as soon as you can. Thank you.
Councillor Foxton.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I'm not in favor of spending any reserves at all because the Moody report said $7.3 billion for our reserves projects over the next 10 years. This money's all allocated. So, but Wayne, today in your report you said $11 billion. What changed between the Moody report?
Through the chair, $11 billion is the value of our tangible capital assets, so the value of all our assets.
Oh, so I misunderstood. I thought it was reserves also. And I wanted to caution council that when the police come in with their budget figure, and it's usually a high percentage, but that percentage is based on the police budget, not the regional budget. So 1% of the regional budget is not equal to 1% of the police budget. I think we need to be aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I just have a question. One of their slides on the RDC, you were speaking about, the development is down 60%. That is really, really, really concerning. But you also mentioned that there was a RDC, this study, and the last time that was done was in 2018. That to me is also very, very concerning. So I'm just wondering why it has taken so long. And then I think you said that it wouldn't be ready till post 2026. So I want some clarification on that because for long-term planning, that is critical, I think, right now for this council.
Absolutely, and thank you for the question. And through you, Chair, on the DC collections, the 60% figure that I mentioned was our collection of RDCs in the third quarter of this year versus the third quarter of last year. So it's a point in time reference. It's not the entire year is down 60%. So just to be clear, it is a point of concern, but not a long-term point of concern. So just to address that first point. And then you also asked about the RDC study. So our last background study was completed in 2018 with the 2019 capital plan information. Historically, the law, the Development Charge Act required a background study every 5 years. They changed that law to be every 10 years before our 5-year study was up. So we let our background study ride another 2 years. And we are just starting it now. So like the asks went out about a month ago. It is a 11-month process through consultants to build a background study. So that's hence the timing. So we are started now. We are moving as fast as we can now. And that's the timeline that we're on.
Okay, thank you. And just one other follow-up, and it's around the property assessment that we know hasn't been done since 2020. How does that impact us, seeing that there hasn't been any update?
So through you, Chair, there's been no updates, so we are still splitting based on the latest assessment information available, which is before COVID. What that means is that existing properties are at their existing value and new properties are at a new value. It doesn't necessarily impact us. What it impacts is just how the tax splits out to residents. So we still are saying this is the total amount we need to collect in order to deliver these services that we're putting forward in budget. And then the assessment date and the assessment amounts and all that stuff that is dictated by MPAC, we have absolutely no control over it. So we put forward our total amount we want to collect. We set how we would like to split between the categories, and then that's how it's collected. So there's nothing we can control or influence there.
Okay, thank you.
We'll go back to Councillor Craig and then to Councillor Hunick.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of things. I think the most important question I have in terms of how we're dealing with this budget, we know all the aspects of what's happening, and it's being laid out, and it's always too much. And every year is a tough budget year. I've heard that for decades. But I think one of the questions I have is with regards to the proposed hospital coming into the region. We have no information. I have no information on that. And as we come out of this budget session, it will obviously, I think we're looking at some sort of surcharge, and I think we have to clarify what's happening, how much it is, and how much it is on top of what we might be adding to the regional budget. So, Mr. Chair, if I can leave that with you to get back to us immediately, that would be great, okay?
Yeah, Matthew, if you want to comment, because I know we recently had a motion, and I know there's work ongoing with you and your team.
Yes, through you, Chair. So, so Regional Council approved a resolution asking REN to come back with some numbers and orders of magnitude on the total costs and what the local share plan might look like. We've been working closely with the hospital and with the CAOs of all the area municipalities to understand what that impact is. Today, we do not have consolidated numbers that we're able to bring back. Just for, this would not be part of the regional budget as such. Would be a contribution that we have to that would be asked for, but we have not received the ask today. So we have some orders of magnitude of other comparable hospital operations in other regions, so we kind of have a sense of what that might look like. But that conversation, we do not have the elements yet. That said, I've had the objective, and I've talked to REN multiple times, was to bring back something, following your resolution, to bring back something as soon as possible to council. I know they were trying to bring something back in November on this. I don't know if they're able to at this time, but that's kind of what we're looking at today, to be able to inform the budget process as well, just at least from a resident affordability standpoint.
Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Chair, and I think it's imperative that we have that information before we finalize the budget. And that's for both the hospitals.
Okay, we'll have to get back to you on that one. Councillor Huenick.
Thank you, Chair Harris. In comparison to provincial and federal taxes, which are income-based, property taxes are not and cannot be. It would really help us if they were, because various people with various incomes would be taxed accordingly. But working within the current system, it would be really helpful if the provincial government would help with the police portion of the tax bill. And so I'm wondering if anyone could explain to me why it is that the provincial government will pay for 50% of paramedic services, but not 50% of police services. That probably was a law decided on long before my time, and if anyone has any background, please help me.
Matthew is going to maybe take a stab at this.
Through you, Chair, I can give a very high-level response to this. There's even the history of cost share programs is highly variable. These are historical political decisions. Some of them are codified through legislation. Some of them are more through general partnerships and agreements. I think there's, the contributions just depend on a long historical political trajectory between what municipalities do and what provinces cover. So I don't think there's a simple explanation apart from saying that's the history of our political and social system.
Okay, well, in case the province is listening at this moment, I think cost sharing is the best policy. Thank you very much.
Back to Councillor McCabe.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions about the climate change adaptation and mitigation component of this, because we know that has a big impact also on our infrastructure, how well it's going to hold up to the very changing weather and climate that we're experiencing, the storms and the damage that it can do. So is there an estimate that you have or that you can provide that could kind of let us better understand what if we don't invest in climate change adaptation and mitigation, particularly for infrastructure, what that will cost us going forward? Do you have a way to kind of measure that, or?
Through the chair to Councillor McCabe, we're working right now on a project to identify that very thing. So we expect that project to come back to council sometime next year. it will not only identify impacts to infrastructure, but also their social impacts to climate change, which impact Commissioner Sweeney's area and Dr. Wong's area, just to name a few. So it's not just infrastructure, but also social impacts of climate change. So we're looking at that as part of that plan. It is primarily going to be focused on infrastructure, but as infrastructure supports service delivery, we will see the impacts to the people who live in the region as well.
Okay, that's an important point about the social aspects of the climate change that we're facing as well. So would that be is that connected to the asset management work that you're doing as well?
Yes, that is correct. Through the chair, the work from the climate adaptation plan will be incorporated into the asset management plan.
Okay, thank you for that. And just my last question, because I think I ask this every year, is just about carbon budgeting. And I know that's a very complex and different process than what typically municipalities do. So I'm just wondering, and I think that's a question, I'm not sure if it's for Wayne or for Rod, but just wondering if you could give us an update on what's happening on that front. Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Chair Harris, our team is right in the thick of developing the carbon budget tools, and I think versions of those will be available as part of this conversation. And we'll continue to roll out the analysis of the impact of the region on climate and the carbon generated by our activities. So we're right into it, and we'll be reporting to council on a regular basis on this.
And that would be, like, what's the timelines with that?
If you give me a couple of minutes, I'll get a clarification on timelines.
Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, I don't have any further questions at this time. We do have a closed session that we need to go into, so if there are no further questions, I will consider a motion to go into closed session for both Strategic Planning and Budget Committee, as well as closed council. I'd like a mover, Councillor Gowing, seconded by Councillor Nowak. If I can ask you to go to your e-scribe to place your vote, that would be great. As our next Planning and Budget Committee meeting will be on October the 18th. I'm a yes. Sorry, that's past November 18th. Okay, so just any objections, raise your hand. Seeing none, that is carried. We will now head down to the, okay, so I guess we need another motion to adjourn the meeting. We'll ask for a mover, Councillor Foxon, seconded by Councillor Shantz. And any objections to that? Seeing none, that would be carried. We'll now see everybody in the Waterloo County room. So